This is your Chargers linebacker, Dan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, there's that old thought process that says it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the way that the free agency period opened for the Chargers earlier this week definitely had people in their feelings, as the Chargers may have been slow getting out of the stable. But yesterday, especially if you were awake on the East Coast, the Chargers did something that everybody thought was going to be one of their first biggest moves to do, was adding a little bit more reinforcement behind that interior of the offensive line. And they finally did 4 days later, as they brought in Mekhi Becton on a 2-year deal, $20 million, fortifying that offensive line. Now you are going to have the beef of Mountain Becton, as I like to call him, and Joe Alt, solidifying the right side of the Chargers offensive line. Dan, everybody was excited about this one. We knew we had to come on here on a Saturday morning, do a live show. After doing the live show last night, we talked about this as a possibility. We were hyping for this for a possibility. And Dan, in the wee hours of the night, Chargers ended up getting everything done. How are you feeling?
Oh, hi, Jake. Hi, Chargers fans. I feel quite wonderful this morning, and I felt wonderful last night, and I was nice, calm, cool, collected, as Chef Hortiz, as he's been called, continued to work and put in a nice little recipe for a 2-year, $20 million Mekhi Becton. Huge value signing.
Oh, there's the voice I was expecting to hear. Jesus.
Chargers.
I thought that's how you were going to be. I thought you were coming out hot, and I was like, Dan seems strangely calm right now.
I'm letting this simmer. I'm letting this simmer because I was getting a little crucified, and folks are going a little crazy on me, talking about my, endless optimism and naivety, and just waiting for Joe Hortiz to get fired, and this Chargers team gonna leave Justin Herbert out there to get absolutely cooked again. And Joe Hortiz and Jim Harbaugh just sitting on their thumbs, watching everyone make all these big splash signings because that's what makes championships. Miss me with all of it. Chargers in the shadows bring in arguably the one who cast the largest shadow, Mekhi Becton, to pair alongside of Joe Alt, another big shadow, and all-pro of his own right, Rashawn Slater, to block for Justin Herbert and new running back Najee Harris. And just think about what that means for the psychology and for the philosophy of Jim Harbaugh and company, and Greg Roman for that matter. They talk about building a bully, right? Take him out in the fourth quarter, drown him. Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt, Najee Harris. Imagine trying to block that. Or imagine trying to get through that if you're going after Justin Herbert. Mekhi Becton resurrecting his career. Justin Herbert, I'm sure, is ecstatic. Chargers fans rejoice. Big sigh of relief. You got Chargers fans' voicemails to get to as well. Chargers Unleashed hotline was going crazy. Live show, so you guys know the deal. Leave questions, comments, thoughts as we go through. How are you feeling about this, Jake? I mean, I feel fantastic. I think Chargers fans went from panic DEFCON 3 to now sunshine and rainbows real quick. How are you feeling about it?
I feel fantastic, Dan. What was it? About almost an hour and a half after we got done with the live show last night is when this deal ended up finally being announced. It was a much needed move for the Chargers in terms of their priorities and fortifying the interior, and they did so. For Mekhi Becton, who, as you mentioned, has resurrected his career coming into the league. Strangely enough, 5 picks behind when Justin Herbert was selected in 2020. Now the Chargers have 4 former first-round picks on that offensive line. And you were talking about casting shadows. You know, like when you're playing in an open air stadium, and there's always that the sun comes through on one side of the field and you're like, oh, that's going to be difficult for certain players to see. That not on the right side anymore. Not on the right side anymore. Not with Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt, 6'8", 6'7", respectfully, 330 plus pounds of beef on that side. They don't cast shadows. They cast eclipse. That's what they do. So I'm feeling great, as I know the rest of the Chargers fan base is feeling great about it. And that's why we obviously went live this morning.
Enemy 805. Let's go. Najee about to run for 1,500 yards. We'll get to that. Jake, we got so much to get to. Chargers fans rejoice. Lots of signs of relief, like I mentioned before. But Jake, before we get to all of it and the questions and topics today, you know the drill. Let's pay the bills. Talk about our friends.
Well, Dan, speaking of beef, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or on one with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline. The game starts here. Yeah, I mentioned I'm still... we didn't bring the stopwatch again today. Eventually, I'm going to try to train myself to where I don't take a breath during that ad read, and we're going to get through it just like that.
You got it. Young West, finally I can smile, LOL. Yeah, I've been smiling for a long time and just watching the fire burn. And all of a sudden extinguishers are out. It's been fantastic. Gerard Robertson says, I feel like Jake should be talking about micro machines.
Yo, I grew up with micro machines, man. Micro machines were the shit. Love micro machines.
I'm out of it. What is micro machines? I know. I probably know what it is. I just don't remember. What is it? We're talking about.
Jesus, Dan, when were you born?
Just tell me what it was so we can get to the show.
It's kind of in the name itself, dude. But they were like little miniaturized cars or jets or whatever the hell it is you wanted to think of in terms of machines in general.
Okay,
they were miniaturized size, and they had all these type of tracks for them and everything like that. And you had your whole container that you kept them in. Oh. Micro machines were the shit.
Okay, I was using like Hot Wheels and Pogs back the day. Like that was my thing.
I mean, Hot Wheels and Pogs were still popular. Micro Machines just predated that a little bit. So
okay. You're definitely older than me. That's fine.
Yeah, I turned 40 in next month. So thank you for making me indirectly age myself.
I apologize. Pappy 1973, have some empathy. Saw several Philly YouTubers crying this morning. That's all you need to know. Is typically when a player is signed or released or let go, whatever, traded, go watch the comments of the team he came from. And that's usually the sentiment. Again, there are outliers, i.e. like when Christian Fulton or Elijah Molden in bad situations come to a team resurrected. Philly fans loved Mekhi Becton, and they wanted him back. And he was a big reason why that team won. And yeah, Philly fans are the feeling. Chargers got a good one. And again, how was it? 25?
25 years old.
First round pick out of Louisville. Starts off at tackle. Doesn't work out at tackle. Gets traded from the Jets to the Eagles. Under the tutelage of that offensive line guru. Figures out the tush push. Figures out physicality. Figures out the position. Bam. Massive impact on a Super Bowl winning roster. Now on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I have this graphic up here because I think it's easy to say it, but then when you really see it, Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, Mekhi Becton. That feeds families in its own right. Then you add a Najee Harris, who, say what you will about lack of speed or explosiveness, that dude gets 1K. And got 1K behind a atrocious offensive line in Pittsburgh and a terrible offense in general over there. Now you got Justin Herbert alongside of that with whatever weapons he has. I'm not trying to pump up smoke, but like that's a different beast. When they talk about like building weapons and using the offensive line weapon and tip of the spear, all that jazz, like that's what they're referring to. Are they done? I don't think so. But damn.
They're not done.
But damn, building a bully. Find me a bigger bully than Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton put together. I'll wait.
I remember when we were at training camp a couple years ago, Dan. And it was the year that Jamari Sawyer had joined the team. And this was the year after Jamari Sawyer had joined the team. And when they kicked him to the right side of the line, this was the year after he filled in for Rashawn Slater at left tackle. And you were out there and you were watching them. And when it was Trey Pipkins and Rashawn Slater next to each other in certain line formations, you were thinking to yourself, like, God, like that is a lot of beef that's out there. Little did we know what we were going to have just a few short years later with Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton now going to be standing side by side, building an ass kicker, building a mauler in the run game. That's what these moves are all about, on top of obviously protecting Justin Herbert. But it's still such a great thing for Mekhi Becton to see a switch like this for him when he was taken, 11th overall in 2020. And to see his early days with the Jets struggling through injuries and position. Again, it is ridiculous if you go back and you watch Mekhi Becton's Louisville tape for a guy that big to be moving the way he was at the tackle position. But you get to the NFL and sometimes it just is a better fit for you when you kick inside. Let's not forget, the Chargers did that when a couple years after they first drafted DJ Fluker because it didn't work out at right tackle for them. And they eventually kicked him inside to guard. You've seen it more recently with Trey Pipkins. Try to see if that experiment works. Hasn't worked, obviously, as well as it did for Mekhi Becton, but sometimes it requires that. And when you have a guy that is the size of Mekhi Becton that's going to stand next to Joe Alt in this Chargers offensive line, that's going to benefit him almost as much as it did for Philly. Now, Philly obviously had a much more established offensive line, but this is a great position for Mekhi Becton to be in, to insert him next to a player like Joe Alt in this Chargers lineup.
100%. Let's get some of these voicemails, Jake. Chargers at least hotline was going off as soon as the signing happened. 323-902-7586. Leave a 30-second voicemail with your thoughts. Be a part of the show. Let's have some fun. Jake, first voicemail. Let's hear what they have to say about this new Chargers team. If I could find the button. There we go.
Hey, guys. Love the show. This is Matt calling you from Iowa. All the people that thought Chef Hortiz was just sitting on his wallet, not buying ingredients, needs to give the guy time to cook. Mekhi Becton, come on, let's go. Bolt the F up.
Yeah, buying ingredients. He bought a watermelon yesterday. He bought a fucking watermelon yesterday. And everybody's ready to, what is it? Do the Gallagher right now because that watermelon's going to bust open on people.
The visuals just keep going.
The visuals for a Saturday morning. Everybody insert joke here.
Joseph DiMartini. Alton Becton is such a beast duo on the right side. Let's go. Joseph DiMartini, by the way. Jake, remember, it was just mere hours ago that he posed the question, do you think the Chargers might go after Mekhi Becton? And your answer, one word, was?
Yes. And then I followed it up with, screw that, they better.
Shout out to Joseph, helping us make this thing happen. Kevin says, big watermelon and busting show. There we go.
That's how we start off Saturday morning when we have.
We're talking about micro machines.
Micro machines. Gallagher watermelon busting, whatever it is.
Yep. I find it curious, to the voicemail point, like how quickly things can change. And the part that I find kind of fascinating is this Chargers team still has like close to $30 million to spend. Aside from draft capital that has to get spent, aside from in-season stuff, like they can still get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. So could they go out there and get another guard? Totally. Another receiver? Absolutely. Another edge? 100%. And honestly, I kind of expect it. I'm not going to lie. Jake, a lot of people are talking about possibly a step back for Mekhi Becton. Gabriel says, Eagles have a historically good offensive line coach in Jeff Stoutland. Does Mekhi take a step back, or what do we expect?
I'm going to say no. And this is more just for the confidence of, if the Chargers didn't have Joe Alt, then you might be able to question that a little bit more. I still think that for Mekhi Becton resurrecting his own career at guard and seeing a second life to his NFL career at a different position is great individually for him. But it's also going to benefit him a lot more with who he's playing next to. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the bigger parts that's going to ultimately end up helping his game. Sometimes you can go out and you can find guards that could just hold their own, and it doesn't really matter. They can supplant the people that they're playing next to. But playing next to Joe Alt is going to help Mekhi Becton in this circumstance to elevate his game and continue getting better at the guard position. So it's hard to measure 31 other lines when you compare them to what the Eagles had in Philadelphia. And for Mekhi Becton, that was great. But coming into this situation with Joe Alt already going to be there to his right, it's going to be good.
Next voicemail. Let's see what they have to say.
Jake, Dan, gentlemen, what's going on, guys? This is me, Matthew from Vegas. Just want to say I love you guys' show. You guys are awesome. Keep it up. My question today is, I know we hired, we got the Becton as our offensive line. So my question is is this team I feel like we have a hard schedule this year. So is this team compare what's the goal this year? I know we're trying to win a playoff game this year, but is this team talented enough to beat the good teams this year? I don't know. I don't feel like it, but let me know what you guys think. So thank you guys. Have a good day. Bolts up, baby.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to be done. No question about it. You look at this roster between now and April 24th, it's going to look a lot different in the next coming weeks. There's still going to be free agency moves to be had. Obviously, whatever the draft is going to bring. And with what we know from Joe Hortiz, there's moves that are going to be done closer to training camp and after the draft. Hello, Elijah Molden. But in terms of the schedule, that's one thing that we should be aware of. That, yes, the Chargers went 11-6, but in terms of their schedule overall for what they had, they did have one of the easier schedules in the NFL last year. But you're now talking about a coaching staff that has now a year under its belt. Majority of this team is still together and understanding of what's needed from it. So I think you're definitely going to see improvement. But the AFC West in general next year is going to be ultra competitive, especially with, say what you want about the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's fine.
Add Genty.
But bringing in Pete Carroll, albeit on a short-term deal for him at his age, is a great move for them.
Totally.
It really is. He brings in Geno Smith familiarity that he had in Seattle. With that, they're probably going to take Ashton Genty at 6. I would be shocked if they did not do that at this point in time. They are trying to build a competitor much like the other 3 teams are in the AFC West. So just in the division, not even just the entirety of the schedule for the Chargers, just the 6 games that you have to play with your interdivisional opponents is going to be ultra competitive next year.
Yeah, I mean, if they can go 4-2 again, you'll take it. I think you sign up for that right now. Don't worry. I love the name, by the way. So are all the Doomers going to apologize now, he says? It was so extreme. It was so extreme. Real Admiral Rick Thunder, FBI, MD. Wow, what a signature. Shout out to the Doomers for making every Twitter and Reddit thread miserable. You're all the worst. Trent says, what did I tell you all? Patience. So many people talking so much crap and giving up on the team. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. I freaking told y'all. Bolt up. Yeah. What they said. James Wagner, goal equals Super Bowl. Let's dig into that question that the caller had, though, Jake. I think if we were to kind of go through this macro, take a step back for a second, they got the break speed off of them in the trenches by the Texans last year. And it wasn't just the Texans. In many games, in big spots, the interior offensive line got cooked. many times especially against the good teams at the most inopportune times. And so, in my opinion, this team needed to get more physical, and they need to help Justin Herbert. Now, that's pretty vague, but interior offensive line had to improve. Like it was so clear. And people want to talk about like pass catchers, and it's important. I understand it. But Brett Coleman talked about it, and I 100% agree. Would it have been nice to have another pass catcher in the playoffs? 100%.
Sure.
But if Justin Herbert has
and
no
that,
time,
and that means just someone who could catch a pass other than Ladd McConkey.
Yes.
That's what that means.
And that's where I get to. Is like, just give Justin competent weapons outside. Competent weapons outside, and he will cook. And if we're being completely honest, last year, for whatever reason, the competency other than Ladd McConkey, especially from a consistency perspective, just simply was not there. Will Disley was tight end 1. Okay. You saw a big drop in the playoffs because he shouldn't be pass catching tight end 1. Quentin Johnston is being relied upon. DJ Chark doesn't work out. Josh Palmer kind of has a down year battling through injury. And then into your offensive line gets cooked. So now, running game probably is going to be more consistent because they have a guy who's durable. Last year, both running backs on IR, by the way. Into your offensive line, not good. So you heard Greg Roman before the season even started last year. Imagine Justin Herbert with a run game. You saw glimpses of it with JK, but it's consistency that is important. And if they can build a bully, which is, I think, the entire team's intent, I think they can be more successful. Now, this season's going to be tougher, right? They got games against their division, obviously. They got to go up against the Texans again. Eagles, they got to go up against the Commanders, Steelers, Vikings, Cowboys. I mean, there's a lot of teams in there that are good. They're no longer a last place schedule. But they're 100% a playoff team. 100% a playoff team. No doubt about it. The other macro part, Jake, that I think probably tickles your fancy the most.
Here we go.
Is what this signing does for the team entering the draft. And beforehand, looking at Mike Williams signing, like that kind of gave some relief when it came to pressure of needs going into the draft. Mekhi Becton, Jake, I mean, bring him in, your whole world opens with what you can do in the NFL draft, especially day 1 and 2.
It changes things in a variety of different ways because this could be the first that causes many dominoes to fall on a number of different things. One, Trey Pipkins. Could he be released? Could he stay? I believe that he actually could stay, even under a restructure, especially if you restructured him and have just a little bit of depth behind him. I could see a world where he remains with this team, even with Mekhi Becton coming in. You know, you brought back Bradley Bozeman, but you're not going to have him at the center position. There was talk from Joe Hortiz about Zion Johnson trying out at center. I don't believe that that's actually going to be the future now that you bring in Mekhi Becton. I also believe that whatever position that you get in the draft, you're going to get 2 interior offensive linemen now. Gray Zabel at 22 is firmly in play as it stands right now, and I would absolutely love that if you were to tell me that was the pick at 22. And then you come back around in the middle of rounds and you get some more added depth. You already have Jamari Sawyer. If you keep Trey Pipkins as your swing tackle option for a little bit more depth, then go out and get another one. That would be how I would see things playing out as it stands. If you didn't get Mekhi Becton, or if you went into this draft not addressing the interior offensive line at all, you'd probably have to say, okay, well, they really are going to put a lot of bank behind Zion Johnson playing center then, and they're going to have to address 2 guards in the draft, which is just a big ask for them given their other needs elsewhere. But as you said, Dan, yes, this shifts priorities in terms of what the Chargers are going to do. Next up on the docket, tight end. Got to fill that.
So that was, I think this is where Chargers fans are probably going to get a little excited now is because, and we talked about this, and a lot of people talk about going BPA, right? The Chargers are now kind of in a position, and there was somebody in the chat yesterday when you're going live that were saying, oh, they have 15 holes to fill. Like, I mean, if we're talking literal on a 53-man roster, sure. But if we're talking like starting positions, not really. Not really. Real quick, folks in the chat, what are we drinking? I didn't even get to ask this. I got a latte. This is a special day for latte. What are we drinking?
I'm back to my normal caffeine push as I was a few weeks ago on the show. So good morning to me. Yeah. Wake up. Eyes open. Let's go.
And second, shout out to the folks that are coming into this thing. Yesterday, I think, may have been close to a record with how many folks were in the live stream. And today,
great turnout from you guys yesterday. It was awesome.
Yeah, you can tell the excitement in this Chargers fan base right now. And I don't know what's more, Jake, like if you had to ask you between the two emotions, excitement, relief, which one's bigger?
I'd probably say a little bit more excitement. And I say that from the standpoint that I felt that Mekhi Becton fit the mold in which the Baltimore Ravens had traditionally kind of liked their offensive linemen, which I felt that Joe Hortiz was going to try to emulate how they built that lineup while he was there. And especially now when you look at the cap numbers compared to the rest of the guard market that got really paid, even though they definitely deserved it. And those were targets for the Chargers wish list early on in free agency. Number one, I'm thrilled that it's more than a 1-year deal. Number two, I love the numbers of the contract for Mekhi Becton. Still getting a guy who's only 25 years old, is still going to be in the prime of his career when he comes up for his second contract. He's going to continue to build off of what he's already learned in Philadelphia against a stud in Joe Alt standing to his right. I mean, it's a beneficial move on a number of different ends. I know that there were more veteran, seasoned, and by some circumstances at the guard position tenure longer than Mekhi Becton that people would have believed it would have been a better fit. But I'm looking for a longer-term option at the guard position. You need to start building this offensive line for the long term and with consistency. And now you've got 4 first-round picks along that offensive line, 2 of which
is crazy.
You're going to have for a minute. You need to start getting those longer-term options.
Brandon says, as a non-Chargers fan, welcome to the chat, by the way. It will be fun seeing your offensive line piss off the Chiefs twice a year. Oh, boy, will that be fun. We've dreamed about this.
That'd be
now,
nice.
Will it happen? We'll see. But I'm not even going to say the 2 words that we say before every season. But blank, blank, this offensive line looks pretty dang good. I think people are pretty split between relief and excitement, to be honest, Jay. We got relief from Laus to Bruin.
No, that was a good question, honestly. I'd probably just say excitement beat it out because I loved the fit so much out of the guard market. But is it relief and excitement? Sure, but excitement beat it out for me.
Mason says, excitement's bigger. Haven't had this high of expectations going into a season in a while. Jake, we got close to 1,200 folks on the stream right now and counting. It just keeps going up. This is pretty wild. Sweet jumps. Never doubted Hortiz for a second. So let's see. Tupapa says, question for Jake. Have you given any further thought to the Chargers trading back to the Bears for 2 second-rounders?
I mean, I didn't think about the Bears specifically, but trading back in general has been something that's been on my mind. Dan knows this for the last 14 years. This is before Dan and I even knew each other existed. I've been wanting a trade back. Hell, I will even take it in any round. If you tell me that the Chargers did a trade back in the 5th, I'll be excited about it. I don't care.
7s.
I've been begging for a trade back
You're so
for
back.
too long.
100%. Alski says, the more the Bolts address areas of need, the better they can go BPA in the draft instead of desperation. 100%. Let's get some of the answers, Jake, of what people are drinking. Big John says, a beer. Don't judge.
Don't judge at all.
Hey, it's the weekend. There is no judgment.
I saw someone in here specifically had a Sierra Nevada that they were drinking.
Ooh, okay. Jack says, Dan, didn't you win the bet saying we would sign offensive line? No one took me up on the bet.
Well, I guess
I was so thirsty for that.
Well, now you don't have any beers to share with anybody, so you priced yourself out of the market, Wolkenstein.
I guess so. Jose says a lavender latte. Ooh. Cheers to that one. Let's see. What else we got in here? I saw tequila in here. People are going crazy. Let's see. So let's get back to that question, Jake. NFL draft. Where do you see it stand now? Because again, you don't work on hypotheticals, remember?
I don't like working out. Well, the hypothetical is, Dan, and you kept doing that. No, hang on a second.
I'm not giving you shit. I'm just saying, like, now we have the guard.
You gave me like 4 hypotheticals yesterday that evolved for the draft. It was like, first it was, okay, between Kenneth Grant and Colston Loveland. And then 10 minutes later it was, okay, Omarion Hampton, Colston Loveland, Kenneth Grant. Which one is it? I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, do I want them all? Of course I want them all. Damn. I love it when you've been doing these hypothetical situations to me for the last 5 years. I know how you work.
Oh, man, this is great. Jerron Robertson. I'm a Dallas-based I think he meant Mavs, Chargers fan who's now all in on the Bolts with the Luka exodus. Yeah, it was definitely Mavs. Sorry, Jared. Welcome to the Bull fam. Yeah, 100%. We'll take you. So, Jake, now, as it stands, we got folks saying an elite running back at 22. We got a lot of people talking Colston Loveland. People drinking the Harbaugh Kool-Aid. Here we go. Micheladas. A cup of black coffee, which is tough. Breakfast shot, Bloody Mary, tequila, water. I mean, there's a bunch of people drinking.
People are having a good Saturday morning, and I like it.
Irish coffee, Dr. Pepper, bold.
Ooh.
Wow.
You know, I'm going to fill you in on a little story about Dr. Pepper with me. I actually learned this one from my dad. And when he told me about it, I never believed it. But if you want something that's actually a refreshing beverage, but if you're also like hungry at the same time, and this may sound totally out of left field, just give it a shot. I'm telling you before, your time is done here, but go out and get one of like the taller Dr. Peppers with the long head top on it. Go out and get like those little 99-cent bag of peanuts. Pour the peanuts in the Dr. Pepper. There's your afternoon snack. And I kid you not, because of the caffeine and the salt, you're going to crash from a food coma later and it's going to feel great. But that's going to get you through. If you need a quick snack and a refreshing beverage at the same time, I know it sounds nuts, and I didn't believe it when I first heard it, but I tried it, and holy shit, it was good.
Whoa. I've heard similar with candy corn and peanuts. Have you tried that?
Yes, because it tastes like a payday.
Yeah,
and it's great combination.
Welcome to Snacks Unleashed.
Yeah, here we go.
Let's get some of the super chats. Thomas Hawley says, Chef's Kiss. Cooking, $5 donation. Thomas, thank you, buddy. You were in here yesterday as well. Justin Herbert. Jake, the one and only Justin Herbert is in the chat.
Oh, my God.
With his own profile pic. I love it. $5 donation. Trust Chef Hortiz and Jimbo. Colston Loveland at 22. So, again, now they more than ever have the option or the ability to go BPA. They could trade up. They could trade down. But given how this Chargers team operates, and I saw someone in the comments last night, can you imagine them then? And I would not be surprised at all if they go Tyler Booker or Grace Abel, either one of those two. Like, those would be honestly kind of my betting favorites right now. But imagine that line. And in one full circle year, 2 drafts technically, you would have Tyler Booker and or Grace Abel, Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater. And then you go back to what Jim Harbaugh talked about the offensive line, Joe Hortiz talked about the offensive line, and how quickly they can make that happen. Now, people aren't going to like it. It's not going to be the sexy pick, just like Joe Alt wasn't the sexy pick. I'm kind of banking on it at this point. even if Colson Loveland's there. Because we have to continuously remember to listen to them. They tell us who they are over and over and over and over and over again. And yet we still be like, no, they're going to go the receiver. To me, if these three were on the board, if I put my Joe Hortiz hat on with Jim Harbaugh in my ear, I'm going Tyler Booker. And Omarion Hampton's probably close second, and Loveland is third. People aren't going to like it, but that's probably the way they go. What do you think?
I mean, I would go Gray Zabel over Tyler Booker as it stands right now, and this is how the Mekhi Becton's aspect changes everything. Tyler Booker is he's one of those type of guys where he's not made for the combine, and that's okay because when you go back and you watch his tape, the dude can just kick ass for his position. He can move people. That's for sure. That is his game, and it's no knock on Tyler Booker whatsoever. But I think about this in the way that I was talking about Mekhi Becton for a little bit more athleticism from their offensive line and guys who were able to not only be maulers in the run game, strong at their position, but move. And I think that that's what you're going to value a little bit more, especially now that Mekhi Becton's on the roster. That's why I would go Gray Zabel in this circumstance. But it does not restrict them from coming right back around a few rounds later and selecting another offensive lineman for that guard position, because I definitely think you need to do that. You definitely need to do that. Dan, if you were to tell me that if the Chargers were to come out of the draft with, let's just say, Gray Zabel.
We're talking before you.
A Seth McLaughlin. No, excuse me, not a Seth McLaughlin. Oh my gosh. I just blanked on the damn name. All of a sudden I still had center on the mind. I was going to say Seth McLaughlin, and that's not it. Tate Ratledge. You're to tell me that they were going to come out with those two along the offensive line? Holy shit. You got something cooking. Even if you passed up center, some of the ones that are in the later rounds that I've always liked, Jake Majors is another one. Obviously, Jared Wilson was a freak. Probably the most satisfying part of the entire combine was watching in order, strictly just because they happen to have close last names in terms of alphabetical order. But watching Jared Wilson and Gray Zabel go one right after the other was so awesome to watch because they're just great athletic players.
Andre says, oh, well, and the first is a wasted pick. I'm going to let that thing simmer. Just sit that right there.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
Yes. The nuts inside the soda, specifically a Coke from Mexico. Try it and you'll thank me later. Huh. Dicker the Kicker with his own profile pic in here says, hi, guys. Hey, what's up, Dicker? How you doing, buddy? Playing Micro Machines with a peanut and Dr. Pepper in hand is it. Dang. Yeah, that sounds good.
We are 40 minutes into this show, and the nostalgia that is running through my veins right now is fantastic.
Jeff Harris asks, of the remaining wide receivers in free agency, who's likely the best fit for the Chargers?
Dan, I'll let you go with this one because you've had your short list of players that you want on this team.
Right now, given who's left, I could totally see them going into the draft as is. People wouldn't like it, but I could see it happen. But imagine if they did bring in some boundary receiver. And I really like the Amari Cooper. I know he might not be, a lot of people think he might not be what he was before, but he's still worlds better than whoever else we have an X receiver aside from Mike Williams. A lot of people talking Keenan Allen. I mean, my heart would love it. And I'm sure it would work. I'm sure he'd get some first downs. I don't know if that's the offense that I would prefer, but I've seen crazier. Stephon Diggs is still out there. You've got, there's some names, but it's kind of slim pickings if we're being honest. So I don't know. Any other names, Jake, that you've seen out there? I mean, I know like Elijah Moore was in the chat. Like I could see something like that. Give some juice a little bit.
When we talked about the wide receiver position, because I really like Elijah Moore. To me, Elijah Moore would have fit perfectly if this team didn't have Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
And I love Elijah Moore. I think he's an underutilized and undervalued asset. And you put him in a different offense, he could bring a lot more production.
Yeah. Putts and Bolts, $1.99 donation. Zabel, and you have an all first round pick offensive line. Yeah. Yeah. Or Booker.
Yeah. If Zabel ends up being the pick at 22, there's no doubt that this was the plan.
Yeah.
That Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz wanted from the get-go. And they couldn't do it last year because lack of options, cap strapped, obviously, but you began the foundation of something when you selected Joe Alt with the 5th overall pick last year. You were able to do this in one offseason, bring in Mekhi Becton and draft Gray Zabel at 22, which also does not mean that you're not bringing in another offensive lineman piece for depth behind it either. You've got something.
Yeah. Matt Waters, $5 donation. Thank you, Matt. What a difference a year makes. Look at us excited for offensive line at 22, except for that one guy who's saying that it's a wasted pick. Building a run wall on offense is like Jesse wants on defense. Hashtag Harbaugh pilled. Harbaugh pilled. Imagine, Jake, if somehow this Chargers team could come out with a Gray Zabel and Caleb Johnson, Marion Hampton, one of those running backs in round 2 or 3. And if they can somehow get one of those tight ends, one of the top 4, you're cooking. You are absolutely cooking. And that's what this Mekhi Becton signing gives them, is the opportunity to do that. Could they go Matthew Golden at receiver? Maybe. Could they go Higgins round 2? Yeah, totally.
He probably doesn't fall to 55.
No, but I'm saying like in a trade-up scenario, kind of like what happened with Ladd. Like they have 10 picks right now. They're in a pretty good spot. So good feelings right now for this Chargers team. Elijah Arroyo would go bonkers. Yeah.
The top
Isaiah.
3 tight ends in Warren, Loveland, and Arroyo would fit exactly what the Chargers need. You've got your blockers. You now need a move tight end that can catch and bring you a target that Justin Herbert hasn't had since Hunter Henry.
PSA. Bolt Fan 10. Thank you by the way. Najee has publicly said his name is not pronounced Najee. The G makes the long E sound and not the A. Noted. He will forever now be known as Najee Harris. Jake, we'll try, okay? You and I, we can get this. We can do this.
This might take me a couple tries.
Najee Harris.
Yes.
Here we go. Your turn.
Najee Harris.
Yeah, see? Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Fitness says Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods on the cheap.
You could. Now here's the thing. You have to remember this, because bringing back Mike Williams obviously is great in terms of what the Chargers needed from an X receiver standpoint. I think me just bringing up Mike Williams in general just made Dan bail. But bringing in Mike Williams gives you exactly what you want in terms of downfield threat, 50-50 ball catcher, added bonus from the standpoint that he has familiarity with Justin Herbert. If you do bring in another free agent wide receiver, all well and good, because you still need a little bit more juice. Mike Williams improves certain things of your core, but you're still not done at filling at that roster. Much like we were talking about with the offensive line, and much like you're going to have to eventually address at the edge position, you need to start building this wide receiver core out to what's going to be the long-term options here. We still don't know what eventually is going to happen with Quentin Johnston. Who knows what this year is going to have in store for him? Josh Palmer is no longer on this roster. Simi Fehoko is no longer on this roster. That leaves you with Darius Davis, Jalen Reagor, Brennan Rice, and obviously Ladd McConkey. So what's the future of your wide receiver room going to be? So I don't discount the idea of the Chargers bringing in another free agent, but most likely it's probably going to be on a short-term deal. So at what point are you going to address it to invest in the long term? Which is why I personally lean towards the Chargers addressing the wide receiver room at least by the end of day 2 in the draft, because there's plenty of X options that you can find at that part of it.
I would say round 4.
That's totally fine too.
Yeah. Like day 2, push it to round 4 probably is where I'm like, okay, after that, you can't really expect much production in the first year. Eric says Kenneth Grant equals Jamal Williams. If he's on the board, he's going to be our starter for the next 10 years. This is a deep draft for interior defensive line, and there's names galore. And what the Chargers did with their interior defensive line signings, gave them flexibility to where they don't need to go defensive line round 1 or 2. But
all 3 of those deals are 1-year deals.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Tito coming up for contract as well. So what is your long-term outlook for the future at interior defensive line?
And think about that from like a roster building perspective. And I think that's kind of where my head goes when I look at, possible options for this Chargers team. You think about all the 1-year deals. The kid comment in here. With all these 1-year contracts, are we going to have $100 million plus in cap space again next year and many holes on the team again? Yeah, maybe, probably. This roster will constantly be churned, especially the underbelly. That's the whole point. That's the comp pick strategy. That's how you get more picks, and you could trade those or use those for more asset that are cheaper. Didn't mean to cut you off, Jake. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. I was going to say that we mentioned this yesterday in the live show. There is, with all these 1-year deals, not just in terms of Joe Hortiz's philosophy on roster building, he has the luxury of banking on something that the Chargers could not previously bank on in previous seasons, and that's coaching. That's Jesse Minter. That's Steve Klingscale. Those are, especially when you look at the Dante Jackson and the Benjamin St. Juste signing, scheme fit, they fit perfectly for what Jesse Minter wants to run. But when you saw how many 1-year contracts the Chargers signed last year that have now gone elsewhere, Christian Fulton, Poona Ford, we don't know what's going to happen with J.K. Dobbins, but he had a great comeback year off of an injury. Mm-hmm. So when you see things like that, you can put more faith in your coaching staff to say, we could take a swing on this guy as a reclamation project because we have the coach that can build them up to make them better and fit our system of what they want to do to ultimately have them produce better. And then it also gives you the luxury of buying more time to build out your team in the long term.
Think about from a roster construction perspective. And by the way, Jake, we're now over 1,500 folks in the live stream. This thing just keeps popping. Appreciate you guys. This is so fun. Do us a favor, hit the like, subscribe, helps us out. 1-year deals. You think about like the key positions in a Jim Harbaugh team, right? You think about interior defensive line. Currently, who is your long-term plan? Crickets, right? You think about edge. Thule is probably your long-term plan. That's one. They probably need another one there. Linebacker, they got theirs. Deion, Colson. They're good. Corners, they have Tarheeb still, Cam Hart. Probably going to go another one.
You're definitely going to be drafting another one in this draft. I guarantee it.
Right, but you can answer the question of like, are they the future? Like you can say they have stuff prepared for the future at that position. Safety, locked. Offensive line, other than a couple interior spots, locked. Running back, not locked. Receiver, other than Ladd, not locked. Tight end, nothing in terms of pass catching. So pass catching, tight end, I think is a big one. Mm-hmm. You want to get some stability there for Justin Herbert. Succession plan for Khalil Mack, I think is a big one. Some stalwart at interior defensive line and interior offensive line.
Need it.
And then running back.
Definitely need that.
1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4 or 5.
It's four spots right there.
And that's where I see this team going. So, yeah, it kind of sets up nicely, honestly. Crazy. Charlie says Slater's becoming the highest paid left tackle in the game. Wouldn't be surprised. I hope they sign him sooner rather than later. The longer they wait, the more expensive it gets. It's just a fact. Let's see. So many questions in here. Jose says, don't be surprised when the Chargers draft a tackle in round 1 to build a 6-lineman rush attack. I'd be surprised.
I'd be surprised if it was a tackle.
Yeah.
Especially after we had Brett Coleman on the show when we were talking to him about his first evaluations from coming back from Indy in the combine. And he said, I went into Indy feeling really, really good about the tackle position. And I came out of Indy feeling really, really bad about the tackle position. So it's because you have such a finite group in this particular class that in terms of either the measurables or the tape or what you see from them athletically, that they're better fits kicking into inside, which in this case benefits the Chargers because that's what they really need.
Yeah. Isaac, oh my gosh, we do have Reagor, don't we? Man, come on, Amari Cooper. Kevin, so many people, there are a lot of people here that are pleading for Keenan Allen. I mean, the hashtag like bring him home thing is like a real thing. Catherine says, getting Herbert a long-term solution will be a top priority. Preach. Preach.
And that can mean a variety of different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's on the line, tight end, wide receiver, running back. It can mean a variety of different things.
Engine number 9. If Golden Brooks, love the name, by the way, Luther Burden or Egbuka are there, you got to strongly consider. And I think Golden's the one that you'd consider the most.
Don't discount Egbuka. If you were to put a situation like that to me, I wouldn't discount that. But for me, I said this on the live show. There's one exception as it stands right now that I would go wide receiver. Yeah, and the only exception would be if Tetero and McMillan fell to 22, and that's not likely to happen.
Jake, I said that like 3 weeks ago, and I got flamed.
What, if Tetero and McMillan fell to 22?
No, that he was the only first-round receiver that I would take.
That was early. Dan, this is the beauty part of
when we know what we're doing before other people.
No, this is the beauty part of this part of the year because so many things can change. Remember the mock drafts that we brought up from 2 years ago when they had literally days before the NFL draft, everybody was mocking Bijan Robinson to the Chargers at 22. Nope. Didn't end up happening at all, did it?
Not even close. Do NFL teams make signings on the weekend? Asked Barry Sinclair.
Yeah. It didn't stop for them. Guys, just last Sunday, before the free agency tampering period opened, you had Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf go to different teams. Yes.
And that's what they actually weren't allowed to.
I am hoping that the Chargers make one over this weekend. And I'm hoping that for some reason it's a tight end.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. How would you feel about taking Mike Green at 22 or another edge rusher? So edge at 22.
So you have Abdul Carter. I always have to really fixate myself on this because I will always either say Shamar Stewart or Shamar Turner because there's two of them. And I always have to remind myself of which one is which. But no, it's Shamar Stewart's not going to be there. His stock's going to be too high. I think Mike Green's kind of an anomaly because his draft stock has fluctuated so much over the last few weeks.
True.
Where some people had him going, early teens, and now some people have him going after the Chargers. I'm not going to discount it just from what we were just talking about. You need a long-term investment beyond Khalil Mack. Now that Joey Bosa is no longer on this team, and Bud Dupree is going to be most likely gone after this season as well, you need a long-term investment. But here's the beauty part, is that this affords the Chargers so many different opportunities to, depending on how the board falls to them and who's going to be there. So there's going to be plenty of options by the time that the Chargers get on the clock at 22 for this.
Roland says, Hortiz is great at playing Moneyball. It's definitely needed to master the art of team building. Again, I think Chargers fans just aren't used to this type of roster building. They're used to and we bitched about this for years, Jake, the thinness of a roster
top heavy
with Tom Telesco.
Yep.
Where you had those massive contracts with great players, I'm going to say it, on paper or in theory. But what happens if/when those guys go down? Or even if they don't go down, other guys will. And you can't go from like A contracts to D- contracts. You've got to have that underbelly with a lot of C's, a lot of B's. And this Chargers team didn't in the past. I mean, they have what? I think it's 18 free agent signings already. And folks are saying they're not doing anything. Like, that's not true. 18, and they still got 30 mil. And if they re-sign or they restructure Rashawn Slater, they're probably gaining another 5-10 million. So this is kind of the new normal, and people aren't used to it. They think it's dumb, but like, when's the last time you saw this many free agents signed this quickly?
I think it was Benjamin Solak that came out with his piece on this the final year that Tom Telesco was here. And he did a very comprehensive view of basically all the free agency moves that the Chargers had made up until that point in time. And the measure of draft picks outside of the first round that hit alongside with the big free agent signings that Tom Telesco brought in, the amount that neither saw second contracts,
oh boy,
or returned on investment from the free agent signings was staggering. And we're talking big money contracts here. We're not talking these 1 year, low risk, potentially high reward type deals. It was nuts. And it was just bad roster building on a consistent basis. And that was when the Chargers didn't have cap space. And then when they did have cap space. Like you said, it may be a different way of doing things. And yes, it may not be the first wave and the big names in free agency that the Chargers are going out and getting for this roster.
Doesn't make it wrong.
It doesn't make it wrong. There is more than one formula to do this.
And I'd argue this is the more effective formula. This is the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not consistent, sustaining formula, in my opinion. Last voicemail, Jake. We'll get to this real quick. 323-902-7586 is the number to the hotline. Leave a voicemail for the next show. We'll see what we can do with it. Next voicemail, Jake. Last one.
Jake and Dan, God bless. Both up you guys. Love you guys. Charger Nation. Oh, look. Joe Hortiz went out and got Justin Herbert a real weapon.
I love this voice, by the way.
You should have this and then Bob from Boston get on a call together. That would create some.
Where is Bob from Boston, by the way? I would have sworn he would have been here by now.
Offensive line, tip of the spear. Going to keep it short, so with that being said, in the words of Jim Harbaugh, in the style of Hulk Hogan, who's got it better than us, brother?
That's great combination there with the voice and then dropping a Jim Harbaugh line. Nice. Everybody's pumped right now. Everybody's pumped.
Yep. Squeezy. Holy LMAO. Yes. Okay, so we brought up tight end a little bit ago. Andrews, Goddard. I think of the two names a lot of people are talking about.
Yep.
Andrews is probably the less of the asset need in terms of like how much you're going to have to give up to get him, in my opinion.
You said
I'm
Andrews
guessing,
for that?
Yeah, I'm guessing like a day 3, probably like round 4, round 5-ish.
I'd say Goddard, honestly, is right around the same compensation.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, respectfully, if they end up trading either one of these players, whether it be the Eagles or both one of the Ravens, they're obviously going to do what they need to do to get the best deal that they can. But you also have to remember that you are going to be in a bidding war here.
Yes.
It's no
but
different
you have more money.
Yes, you do have more money. Yes. But there's 31 other teams that would love to have a Mark Andrews on their squad. I don't care about last year. You're still going to take Mark Andrews. So you are going to get in a bidding war. And if there is a better offer that is put forth for Baltimore, they're going to do what's best for them. But I think you hover between the 3rd and the 4th round pick. That'll probably do it.
I don't want to do a 3rd.
I don't think it'll get that high, but I'm just projecting a possible bidding war if someone has the moxie to do that, they could.
If you told me right now the Chargers traded a 4th for Andrews, sign me up. Yeah, I'd do it. I wish it was a 5th, but yeah, I'd do it. If you just said it'll get done with a 4th, yeah, or like a 5th and a 6th, sure, yeah, I'd do it. Let's see. Grayson LaFrenz says DL or OL at 22 and 55. I believe that is what they will do and should do. Wouldn't be surprised. Not one bit.
Whichever order you want to put that in.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I probably would put, but see, the only thing about offensive line early, like if you did the Gray's Able or, the top end ones, I get. But you can get starting caliber into your offensive lineman later in the draft.
You can.
And defensive line is so deep this year.
But how many of those are good quality centers that you were talking about, Dan, in terms of the offensive line? The guard market.
I'm saying other than Zabel. That's what I'm saying.
Zabel,
that?
Jared Wilson, Jake Majors. Again, if you pass on it in the first round, I'm not trying to suggest that this is where the Chargers need to go, but this is the options that you're weighing if you do pass on it. What are your chances of possibly finding them at 55? Most likely that would be the Jared Wilson realm for him to be considered. Or some people believe that he's going to go in the 3rd round. If he does, are you guaranteed to get him?
Yeah. There was a question that came in about, I can't find it now. T1000 says, you two don't like Luther or Golden? Didn't say that.
No, not at all.
I think we both like them.
We're strictly just trying to measure the board for what the Chargers need to build out.
What they would do.
So if this Chargers roster was constructed differently, we'd probably be having a different conversation today.
Here's a name for you. Forgotten locale. Bring Gerald Everett home. Now, I mean, he turned into a whisper real quick in Chicago. You heard his name no times.
He had a great final year with the Chargers.
But for the Chargers, he was pretty damn good. And he was one of the few that had that Harbaugh mentality. I mean, that guy would not go down. That guy was a yak dude, physical, tough. I know he had that one key blunder in the Kansas City game. I get it. But I kind of like Gerald Everett. Now, would I like him as like my tight end 1 solution for Justin Herbert long-term? No. But like as a consolation going into the draft, if you don't get Andrews, you don't get Goddard, like, yeah. What do you think about Gerald Everett?
You think about him possibly coming on this roster, it's a 1-year deal. Much like you said, would Gerald Everett be the number 1 tight end on this team? I wouldn't consider it. Not because I don't like Gerald Everett. I just think for what this team needs, Mark Andrews would afford you a little bit more of a lengthy, option at tight end that would supplant a lot. Obviously, he can do more and give you more boost as an offense. Dallas Goedert, the same thing, in my opinion. But tight end is a position that you need to look for beyond 1 year.
Yeah. Again, Herbert. Like Everett would be like a stopgap thing. He would not be my tight end 1. But if it was give me Loveland, Everett, Disley, cooking. Yeah, 100%. Like I would 1,000% take that as my tight end room in a heartbeat. 100%. What do you make of the 2-year deal real quick for Mekhi Becton? Did you think it was going to be more? Less?
I think that's right around what he was projected to be. Honestly. And maybe here's where the surprise was.
So like, did you wish that it was more? Like, did you wish it was like a 3-4 year deal?
I don't want to say no. I mean, because I still believe that you need long-term investments, especially along the offensive line. But for the Chargers and Mekhi Becton, it's a win-win. Because you get it, I mean, once again, compare it to what that first wave of free agency was, with a number of the guards that ended up being signed, a lot of which were on Chargers fans' wish lists to ultimately get done. And then you compare it to Mekhi Becton's contract, which still from a schematic standpoint, I think it fits perfectly. And then it's a win-win, not just for the organization, but for Mekhi Becton as well, because 2 years later, if this build for his career at the guard spot continues to go well, hey, he's only going to be 27 by the time that contract's up.
Crazy.
And you could re-sign him right after that. So that's a win-win for both sides.
Yep. We get to eliminate the free agent on the left-hand side because he's now a Los Angeles Charger, so that's fantastic. But there's a lot of guys on the wish list still out there. Extinguish the Guilt says, look at Everett's stats last year. Look at Everett's offensive line last year. That place was in shambles. And again, like, I don't know what the issue was in Chicago, but I'm pretty confident that Gerald Everett was not part of the problem.
They had other problems.
They had a lot of problems. And yeah, I think a lot of people here, Jake, are kind of on the board with the Loveland, Everett, Disley. Like, I'm cooking with that 100%. James Wagner says the Chargers did amazing in last draft, so they should really cook this year. I trust whatever they won with. 10 picks they got this year, Jake. 10. Crazy. Free agent wish list. Who's at the top of your list right now?
It's tight
after
end.
Mekhi Becton.
It's tight end. I know some, and I'm one of them in terms of, you know, if Andre James is available, that you bring him in as center/guard option. Would love that in terms of reinforcements and a possible starting option for you at that role. But tight end, Dan. Tight end. You need to figure out a way to build that position, please.
And I think, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe Mark Andrews has a signing bonus coming up that triggers on Monday. So I think like there's a window where if something were to happen, yeah. So I would think that would happen sooner rather than later, either with the Chargers or somewhere else. I think it's probably going to be, I could totally see that happening, honestly. I would love it. 100%. I would love it. Squeezy, did you guys talk about how that second year of Becton's contract is very likely set up to be a cut trade year if his success doesn't transfer? Not that it won't. I expect him to be a baller.
Yes. I mean, you would never hope for any player to be a failure from a free agency standpoint. But no, we did not mention that. Like to believe that given this change in trajectory for Mekhi Becton, that it's going to benefit him for the long haul, especially playing next to Joe Alt.
Yeah. We got folks in the chat talking about their their free agent wish list. So yeah, in the chat, who do you want next? Who's the one guy that you want next? Biggest impact.
You're talking player or position?
Player.
Okay.
So Jake, your answer would be either Andrews or Goddard?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Andrews or Goddard would probably give them, like, if they got one of those two, it makes the draft kind of like, just, if I'm Joe Hortiz, it's like, all right, who's on the top of that board? Cool. Next round. Who's on top of that board? Cool. Next round. Who's on top of that board? Cool. Edge would be kind of nice too. Like a Dante Fowler, Ojulari, Zadarius Smith, like that type of signing contract, just for like a short-term veteran type deal. Imagine if they go like a Tevin Jenkins and get like and just go 2 for 1.
I mean, do I say no to it? No, I don't. But I think from them bringing in Becton at this point, it's now given them so much flexibility. Because if you bring in Tevin Jenkins with Mekhi Becton now, does that mean that Zion Johnson is your brand new center? Is that what that means?
I don't know.
So to me, I think as it relates to offensive line outside of a possible James signing at center.
Andre James, yep.
Yes, that you move your priorities to building that offensive line now through the draft.
Catherine says, sign another offensive line. Mark Davis says, Amari Cooper. I'd be all about Amari Cooper. Like, again, that's another one where, like, oof, they got that. Like, that makes things so much easier in the draft. Talk about taking pressure off. Yeah, 100%. Alex says, stop running it back with old players. There's a difference, in my opinion, between running it back with old players at a sizable salary and running it back with these kind of low end value hunting contracts. You're not bringing Gerald Everett for $10 million a year. You're probably gonna get him for 2-3, probably. Like, that's not risky. But bringing back, Keenan for $15 million, that's a little risky. Mike Williams for 15, risky. Mike Williams for 6, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Let's see. Matthew Dahl says Colin Cowherd did his show yesterday, and he has the Chargers winning the AFC West division. Is he crazy?
Doesn't he always? Like, I'm not joking. Especially since Jim Harbaugh has been here. Doesn't he usually always have the Chargers like
he's definitely high on him. Yeah.
I mean, thank God last year, you finished the season 11-6. You have a playoff berth. Unfortunately, didn't get as far as what you wanted to do, but hey, good for Colin.
Yeah. Upwards of 1,600 folks in the chat still, Jake, as we go through this stream. This is crazy.
Great Saturday morning.
Maybe about 10 minutes or so, we'll try to do a live Q&A here to end this thing out. Rapid fire. Yes, Delfino, this is live. Ask your question. Fire away. We'll do our best to answer. HH4 says, Andrews or Hendrickson? Hendrickson's going to be pricey. I just don't see it.
I look at the roster as it stands right now, and you do not have a tight end one on this roster.
Yep.
It's Andrews.
Yeah. Forgotten Lolcow says, Goddard, so nice. 100%. Jay Nutt, just give me a damn tight end. Please, anyone. Yeah. Fitness says, I wouldn't mind a really good linebacker. I mean, linebacker is pretty deep right now.
It is. It arguably is one of the deepest positions that you got with who you're able to bring back. Bringing back Denzel Perryman was key, one of your better run stuffing linebackers that you had. You're hoping for a bounce back from Junior Colson because he was riddled with injuries, essentially just had a redshirt season for his rookie year. Deion Henley, welcome to the NFL. He himself had a redshirt year when he was first drafted, and look what he did in a brand new defensive system. And then you fill that out with Troy Dye, and remind me, Dan, it was essentially the
special
Nick
teams guy. I forget his name.
Yes, the Nick Neiman replacement that the Chargers signed yesterday. Apologies for forgetting the name. But yeah, your linebacker room is pretty filled out as it stands right now. So do I think that they will still address it? Sure. But I don't see them addressing that before day 3, not with the other positions that you have.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. And Phillips is the guy's I forget his first name. I don't remember. Anyways, Amari Cooper says Robert D. Yeah, there's a lot of folks wanting that. Calais Campbell. I know he's like 70, but yeah, I would still do it. Eric's wanting him. Derek Weatherington with Becton. How does that affect what the Chargers do in the draft? The right side of the offensive line is going to be devastating. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. Basically enables them to go more BPA than they were before.
Yep.
One less guard that they'd have to go for looking at a starting position, 100%. Ryan says, cut Pipkin, sign Andre James, and Keenan Allen reunion. They can save a healthy coin getting rid of Trey Pipkins. I think it's like $9 million they can get back. Like, I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised he's still on the team. But that's just, I take that back. One more interior offensive lineman, and I think he might be cut. They bring in another one, starting caliber, I think he's probably cut.
And like I said, I think that there is a world where Trey Pipkins remains with this team if it means a contract restructure. Because if this Mekhi Becton signing is kicking him to a more reserve role and you keep him for a swing tackle option for an emergency situation where you keep him as a right tackle or a right guard to finish out the final year of his contract, then okay, so you at least have some depth there. But that's the only way that I could actually see that taking place is if it was a restructure, because you're not going to pay that type of cap hit for a backup at that point in time.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. I believe a trade for Kyle Pitts would be a redemptive arc at very little cost to the team. I mean, I agree with you on the last part. I don't think that's a high risk. Could probably get him for, I don't know, realistically, what, 6th? Like, I would 100% give away one of my 6th-round picks for Kyle Pitts. Sure. What's the worst that happens? Doesn't work out. And you got 3 more 6th-round picks. I mean, I've seen worse. That could be fun. And that's totally a Jim Harbaugh, Joe Hortiz style of transaction, too. Jake, one more voicemail here just came in live.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, hello. Love the show. Love the Mekhi Becton pickup. But I really like Elijah Moore. He's only 24 years old with a second-round pick from the Jets. What do you guys think? Let me know on your show. Have a great day. Bye.
We were both really high on Elijah Moore coming out of the draft.
Really liked Elijah Moore. And again, if this was a universe that the Chargers did not have a Ladd McConkey, I would say that would be a great fit for the Chargers to do that. I've loved Elijah Moore. And yes, everything that caller said in terms of where he's at in his career, his age, that would be nice to have. You could use a 1-year flare on him. Mm-hmm. But the way that the roster is constructed right now, the slot is Ladd's territory.
Yeah, I think so. Derek says, please, Joe, re-sign JK on a 2-year deal, sign Tevin Jenkins, and go get another receiver and tight end early on in the draft. JK is still a possibility. You saw JK tweet out something with the signing of, you saw Dan Henley tweet out something in response to Mekhi Becton getting signed, where basically he can running back. J.K. Dobbins replies with a bunch of laughing emojis. You know how excited J.K. would be to run behind this offensive line with Mekhi Becton in front of him now? Honestly, I think he'd be excited to run it back with his team regardless, depending on the price tag.
Yeah, and I don't fully shut the door on J.K. returning. I said it. I've been saying it. I preferred the J.K. Dobbins return over the Najee Harris signing if I was to just have my pick between the two. And that's that's personal preference. That's because there's a different skill set between the two of them. As
that's a Jake mentality versus a Jim Harbaugh mentality.
Yeah, and it's no knock on either one of the players. They're just different at what they bring.
Let me ask you this real quick. Let me ask you this real quick. Would you rather have JK for 10 games or Najee for 17?
Didn't I tell you at the beginning of this show to stop it with the damn hypotheticals, Dan?
I'll give you one more. I don't listen to you.
So say it again.
JK for 10 games or Najee for 17? Because that's basically what this staff decided between.
Well, when you put it that way, because we saw what the Chargers' running game was like when they didn't have J.K. Dobbins. And
that's the decision they made.
Durability was a big aspect of it. The consistent production that Najee Harris over the last several years was a big part of it. And I get it. And the Chargers very well just may be shifting what they want from their running back stable that they're going to build, obviously from their offensive line that they're trying to build. I would love to see JK back with the Chargers. Yeah. I don't think it's impossible, even with the signing of Najee Harris. Less likely, definitely less likely. Not impossible, but once again, I think you need to find your long-term solution at running back. It still is not going to be that running back as a 3-down back. Greg Roman is still trying to build his running back stable to move forward and have multitude of guys produce in this game for him. So he's trying to build his running back by committee version 2.0 for him that he wasn't really able to get the most out of last year. And Dan, again, you have one of the best and deepest running back classes in the last 20 years to choose from.
Don't look now, but could it be possible that Najee Harris is a long-term option? I mean, he's 27. J.K. Dobbins is 26. Usually you look for running backs at the beginning of their career. You get the rookie contract. Yeah. Like I get all that, but they're not old. Like these guys are still in their prime. So one of these, like, let's say they bring both back and one goes off. Like that could easily be your long-term option. Like don't rule that out, fans. Like that isn't necessarily a bad thing. And for JK, in my opinion, Jake, it's all about the market. I don't know what his market would be. For the right price, I guarantee you this Chargers team would like to have him back. But I kind of think he's probably able to find more money elsewhere. So it really just depends on what he wants and what he prioritizes. And that's okay.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about the running back market in general, and this is not just related to JK, or this is just related to any running back. You obviously see the extension and well-deserved for Saquon Barkley that he ultimately signed, but this year's free agent running back market is not last year's.
No, it's not.
Extremely different. Extremely different market.
Yeah. Najee, says Barry Sinclair. Everyone's saying Najee Harris of the two, Najee versus JK for 10 games. Daniel says, why not both? That's what I'm talking about. That duo go crazy. I tweeted him. We'll see what he says. Najee is a dependable workhorse. Chris Jones for the Chiefs has been a game wrecker, says Eric. Would love to have our own version for the next decade.
You would. The best part about it is that this is the right draft to find that.
Mark Davis says we need an ice bath challenge for Jake. LOL. 7 seconds. I go way over for Jake. Jake's a glutton for punishment. Come on.
This question came out, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. Someone dropped this same comment in the chat, and at that point in time, it was 10 seconds over under. And then the next week, like the line dropped to 7 seconds. I'm like, whoa. Who's making these lines here all of a sudden? Like, give me some credit. And whenever it was 7 seconds, we're like, oh, definitely the under. I'm like, damn. It's like, let me give it a try.
I'm totally taking the over.
Thank you. Appreciate the confidence.
Someone tell Jake he can't do it. Jake's like, I will kill myself before I'm wrong.
That is not always the case for me. I know the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm not good at, but I will at least give it a try.
Derek says, Keenan with Mike Dubb and Ladd would be downright nasty. Yeah, I mean, some people love that. Bella says, why not Najee Harris with Ezekiel Elliott? Is he still on the team? I mean, he is.
Wait, did they sign him to? I don't think that they signed him to a reserve.
I think he's still on the practice squad, I believe. Could be wrong. I don't know. Someone check us on that. Magoo's World. We need a draft 2 tight ends. I almost don't care what round. Yeah.
Well, you may have an opportunity to get one before the end of the weekend and then still come back around in the draft and get another one.
Bringing back Mike is not dumb. You know what's dumb? Sending Johnson on vertical routes down the sideline and throwing it to him, expecting him to come down with it. I can't argue that. TNT's Adventures to See. They need a cannon firing footballs at combine so we know who can catch Herbert's ball. Yeah. True. All right, Jake, we made it to... Wow, it's already almost an hour and a half, and we're still over 1,600 strong. This is wild. Weekend to get to. Hopefully, Chargers make some news. I haven't looked at all at social. Any breaking news since we've been on?
I haven't seen anything either.
Folks in the chat, let us know. I don't think so.
But if we've learned anything from this free agency period with the Chargers, they usually do their dirty work later on in the day.
Or as soon as we sign off.
Or late in the evening hours. Yeah.
Cool. Jake, anything else we want to discuss today before we get out of here? This has been a great 24 hours. Appreciate everyone in the community the last 24 hours, the live stream last night, plus today. I mean, this was a ton of fun.
Yes.
Anything else, Jake?
It's a great way to wake up on a Saturday, isn't it? Great way to wake up on a Saturday.
So good.
Dannon's comment about the appreciation for everyone in the chat actually is it's an understatement. I don't think that Dan and I can say thank you enough to everybody that's come in here and support the channel. For our new listeners, for our longtime listeners, we appreciate you all. And we just love talking football. That's all it is. It's simple as that. Dan and I never claim to be right about everything. We've definitely been wrong on a lot of things, but we just like talking football. All right. And so we appreciate everyone that's in the chat. We hope you all have a great Saturday, a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. We will obviously be back here soon because there's plenty to talk about as we are getting that much closer to the NFL draft. As Dan teased yesterday on the live show, there's at least 3 special guests that we have locked in between now and April 24th. So I guarantee you're really going to enjoy that, and we will try to have more to come. But thank you guys so much for coming in. Really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. Dan, take us home.
Rick H-Town with a $5 donation with the super chat. David Andrews and Garrett Bradbury are available. We need a vet center ASAP. Don't want to hear about Bozeman starting again this year. I get it. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Chargers still have money to spend, and I believe that they will be spending it. So look for that A special guest episode, I believe, starts Monday.
Hell yeah. I didn't even
the-
know that. But that's breaking news to me.
Be on the look.
If you know the phrase Dan Wolkenstein works the phones, magical things happen, this is obviously one of them. So that was breaking news to me. So Monday, it is.
Stay tuned. James Wagner, fabulous show. Thank you guys. Love the Bolt family and love the future. God bless. Yeah, this was a fun episode. Appreciate all of you. Bolt fam is the best. We love you for better or for worse. We love all of the emotions, all of the crashing, all of the landing. Look, we're all in this together. In this Chargers team, all of us just want to see succeed. That's the end result here. And this Chargers organization, under the tutelage of Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz, seem to know a thing or two about what they're doing. So, in that lens, Jake, this has been fun. If you have not done so already, please hit that like and subscribe. I have reached the end of my latte. Is your energy drink gone?
Pretty much done. Yeah, so that means it's time to end the live show.
All right, I'm going to drink mine. All right, for Jake, you can find him at Jake T. Hefner on X, myself at NW Sports. This has been Chargers Unleashed. Thank you, guys and gals, so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed, sooner rather than later if they make a signing. We'll see. Talk to you then. Bye.